BookTube, my name is Emily and this is my channel, The Redheaded Ravenclaw. Today I'm going to be telling you guys all about the books that I read in August, and there's a bunch of them, so you should probably buckle up on your couch or your office chair or wherever you're watching this, and I will try not to talk too long, but knowing myself, I will probably ramble about each and every one of these things, so without further ado, let's get started. So I think I mentioned last month that with manga, I'm just gonna give them the rating so I don't spoil stuff about it, but I have been thinking about, specifically for My Hero Academia, doing a separate review of each of the volumes, and so I can do spoilers, and so I can talk in detail about each of the volumes and talk about how it compares to the anime. And so I'm going to do that. So right now I'm just going to give you the ratings that I gave each of the volumes I read. I read volumes 5, 6, and 7 this month. So volume 5 I gave 4 stars, volume 6 I gave 5 stars, and volume 7 I gave 3 stars. I just really freaking love My Hero Academia and I never want to stop talking about it. And my plan is to finish through volume 13 before season 4 of the anime comes out in October, I think. And I have volumes 1 through 13 on my bookshelves, and so I'm up to 7, and so I'm hoping that in September and October I can read 8 through 13, because I think, if I'm correct, that 13 is the end of season 3, and then 14 through whatever the last number is going to be is season 4. So, well, I guess that I would have to stop before the ones that have just released, but anywho, that's the plan for now. The next book that I read was Noteworthy by Redgate, and the reason I picked this up, one, is because books about music and about music groups or bands or whatever are one of my favorite niche genres, because I think I mentioned this in my last wrap up or another video that I did recently, but I play the trumpet and I've been in band since the 6th grade, or I was all throughout college. So I have a place in my heart for music, so I really love to read about musical groups. And I got this recommendation from Cece at Problems of a Book Nerd's channel. So this is about a girl named Jordan who goes to a private fine arts high school, and she's really struggling because she hasn't gotten any roles in the musicals, and so she decides to audition for an all-boys a cappella group undercover, dressed as a boy, and she makes it in, and she keeps this secret from the guys for a really long time. And so it was all about the struggles of identity and things like that within, being posing as somebody else. And I liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. I wasn't liking it at first. It took me a really long time to read this book. I put it down when the reading rush came around because I started it before reading rush, and then it didn't really fit any of the prompts, and I didn't want to, and I was already over 100 pages into it, so I didn't want to count it. I really loved the musical parts, and I loved the discussion of identity through cross-dressing, and there was some really good LGBTQ rep. Some of the other members are members of the community, the members of the a cappella group, I should say. And the only problem that I had with this is that Jordan never really gets any consequences from pretending that she's somebody she's not, and that's not to say she can't explore her identity and things like that, because I'm really glad that she did, but she lied to these guys for the whole semester, and she doesn't get any consequences from them, when they find out, sorry if that's a spoiler, but they do find out that she's not a boy. They are just kind of yeah, whatever. And so I didn't like that there were no consequences for her lying to them and pretending to be somebody else. And also, a lot of the problems in this book are from a lack of communication, which just is something that I don't like to read about. And it's just, I've heard a lot of discussion recently about not wanting to like have issues based around lack of communication, and I completely agree. So this was a 4-star read to me. I feel like I just said negative things, but I did really like this, and I liked the friendships that were formed, and I liked, again, the musical aspects of this. So I will probably pick up Riley Redgate's other books, and yeah, that's this one. Next, I listened to the audiobook for The Diviners by Libba Bray, and I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I listened to it during the Diviners read-along that Chelsea, Madeline, Melanie, and Jane did earlier in the month, and I didn't participate in any of the Twitter sprints or anything, but I just read it at the same time they did, and I've thought for a long time that I was gonna like it, and I just hadn't picked it up yet, and so this opportunity came up, so I jumped on the bandwagon and I decided to read it, and I'm really, really glad I did, because I really liked the characters in the book. I liked the ghost story aspect of it, and the like magic tied in with spooky vibes, because I wouldn't say it's scary, and I had heard people that have read this as well say that it's got some scary stuff in it, and I don't think that I would describe it as scary. It was definitely spooky and kind of creepy and weird, but I really love ghost stories, and in fact I did like my senior year of college, I did an independent study about death and ghost stories and things like that, so obviously it's something that is interesting to me. I really liked Evie, and I'm excited to read the next book because I have a feeling that it will be more about Memphis' story, and I'm super interested in what's going to become of his powers and things like that, and I'm just interested to see where the magic goes. I've heard that the next book is more about dreams and like things like that, so that's super interesting to me, and yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. The next book I read was Daughter of the Siren Queen by Tricia Levenseller, and this is the sequel and the Daughter of the Pirate King duology, I think it's called, and surprisingly I really, really enjoyed it. I have heard pretty much everybody hates the second book, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think I also gave the first one 4 stars, but I ended up liking the second book better. I feel like the problems that I had with the first one were kind of resolved in the second one, which is mostly that the main character, Alosa, she's pitched as this really like strong, independent pirate who like doesn't need anybody else, and she has a mostly female crew, and she can just like do all this cool stuff on her own, and the problem I have is that as soon as she meets this guy, everything is like about flirting with him, or she's like falling for him and doesn't know, like, I don't know, it just seems like she becomes a little more incapable of doing the piratey stuff that she's supposed to be doing, and so I was frustrated at that in the first book. But then in the second book, Raiden, who is the guy in the first book, the love interest, he's very like specific to state like, this is your ship, you rescued me, like this is you know, your crew, and I'm not going to interfere with that. You do you, and I know you're strong, I know you can like do whatever needs to be done. And so I really liked that the guy was giving her validation of like, he's not going to step in and interfere with her business. And I think that the plot of this one was a little bit like too convenient, but that didn't really hinder from my enjoyment. I listened to the audiobook of it, and I think that it was a solid duology. Next up, I read one of the weirdest books I've ever read in my whole life, and it is called Weetzie by Francesca Leah Block, and it is about this girl, I don't even remember her name, but she and her best friend, in a weird turn of events, get 3 wishes from a genie. And the start of this book has like absolutely no magic in it, so I'm not really sure how this genie comes into play, like why that was a decision that was made. But because of the way that Weetzie Oh, that's her name. Duh. Because of the way that Weetzie words her wishes, they come true, but in a roundabout way. And this was just like the most bizarre book in the world. Like, the characters have super, super weird names. There's like, I don't know, like at one point the main character has a threesome with her gay best friend and his husband or boyfriend so that she can have a baby because her boyfriend or husband doesn't want to have a baby, but then he gets mad and goes and has a baby with a witch, but then they like discriminate against this witch baby, and it's like, it's so bad. Like, I hated it. And I listened to the audiobook, and it was only like a 2-hour audiobook or something like that. It was just really bad. I would not recommend it. I gave it 2 stars because, like, though it was terrible, like, I was laughing at it because of how weird it was. And based on the content, like, the quality of it is probably a 1 star, but I was like laughing. It was like almost a hate read, but like more like just a guilty, like, why am I laughing at this horrible content read? So yeah, 2 stars. I don't recommend it. The next book I read was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I'm so sorry if this has a glare. I have this signed copy from Barnes and or Books A Million, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, this is the 3rd sub-series in the Grishaverse, and it follows Nikolai and Zoya and Nina from Six of Crows duology, and I really liked this. I have some complaints though, because I felt that it was basically just like for the fans that want to hear more about Nikolai and Nina. And Zoya's story is really interesting as well, but I feel like we didn't really like learn that much about her previously, and we do get to learn more about her in this. But I feel like nothing important happened in the first 250 pages of this book. And this is a really long book. This is like, I want to say it's close to 600 pages. Okay, no, it's just a little over 500 pages. But still, like, nothing happened of significance, in my opinion, in the first 250 pages. And it just felt like we were getting info dump about Nina and Nikolai. But at the same time, like, I was enjoying myself. I'm glad that we got to learn that information about them. And I'm scared to see what the next one in this series is going to be, because I feel like it's going to be just, I don't know. I don't know if that's out of the system now, like the catering to what the fans want, or if it's going to continue to do that, because I am interested to see where this goes. But also the ending of this really solidifies to me that is like a fan thing, in my opinion. I don't know if that's true, and I don't want y'all to think that I didn't like this, because I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next with all of these characters. Basically, what I got out of this is that, like, I really want Nikolai and Zoya to get together. The tension between them throughout this whole book was just almost infuriating. Like, I don't know, I feel like they definitely have a connection, and they just like are going through so much that they can't be together at this point in time, but hopefully that happens soon. And then I'm really excited that we got to see Nina use more of her powers now that they've changed some. And also, like, to nobody's surprise, I freaking hate the apparat. I hope that's how you say that. He just is creepy, and I hate him, and he's the worst. So those are my thoughts on King of Scars. Let's see what happens in the next one. Next, I read one of my absolute favorite books of the year so far, and that is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I obviously gave it 5 stars, and it is about this girl named Elizabeth who's training to become a warden, which is a person who's similar to a librarian, but in this world, the libraries house grimoires, which are books that can turn into monsters. And she gets into some trouble after going against the rules that she's supposed to follow, and she ends up having to work with a sorcerer named Nathaniel, and sorcerers and wardens don't really get along because sorcerers use dark magic. And it was such a good book. Like, I'm so glad I listened to the audiobook. However, the audiobook that I listened on Scribd. There was this weird editing thing where it would like go for so long, and then like they would just cut in an edited sound clip or something, like they missed it in the original cut or something, and it was very jarring, and it took me out of the story because the sound quality was different, the voice sounded different, and so that was just, it threw me off a lot. But that didn't hinder from me enjoying the story, because obviously I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And I think one of my new favorite characters in the whole world is Silas, because he reminds me almost to a T of Sebastian from Black Butler. And I read this at the perfect time because I had just finished the first season of Black Butler, and so I was like making these comparisons between Sebastian and Silas, and I love it so much. Like, I love Silas, I love his like dryness, and he like, there were so many times I was laughing at what he was saying, and though he's a demon, he can be super scary, but I just, I'm obsessed with him. And so that was like one of the best reads that I've read all year, and it's like really close up there with Crooked Kingdom. And I loved the use of dark magic and how Nathaniel was able to help Elizabeth like learn that not all sorcerers are bad, and learn about the different like things that are going on in their world in terms of wardens and like working with the grimoires and the sorcerers and their use of them. And I loved the atmosphere of the book. It just was very like, it reminded me of Strange the Dreamer in a way, but like they're not closely related, but I got those vibes, and I just loved it. It was wonderful. The next thing I read was Sweet Filthy Boy by Christina Lauren, and this was because I needed to read a book that had the word sweet, spicy, salty, or bitter in the title for one of my pop sugar challenges that I'm doing this year. And so I found it on Libby, and I was like, yeah, I read Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating earlier this year, and I liked it well enough, so let me just pick up another Christina Lauren. And y'all, this story is very unbelievable. It's about a girl named Mia, and she and her 2 best friends from college, right after graduation, they decide to go to Vegas to have one last hurrah before going into the adult world. And so when they get to Vegas, Mia sees this guy in a bar. His name's Ansel, and he's from France, and they just kind of have this weird connection. After an interaction where Mia goes to Ansel's room to tell him to shut up because they're being super loud, they see each other in the bar again the next day, and then after a crazy drunken night, all of the friends, so like Mia and Ansel and her 2 friends and his 2 friends, they all end up getting married and like just having like a crazy Vegas night. The next day, all the other friends are getting annulments, but Ansel tells Mia that she wrote him a letter that he is not allowed to let them get an annulment, and so she reads the letter, and apparently she writes letters to herself when important things happen. And so then Ansel convinces Mia to go to France with him for the summer. And my first thought was, okay, stranger danger, like, we don't do that, like, you've known each other for 2 days, even though you're married, like, this is not cool. And it was just really hard to believe, because I feel like people wouldn't be gung-ho to just go to a different country with someone they met 2 days ago. Like, if you are someone who would do that, you know, I'm not judging you or whatever, but I'm just somebody who, you know, could not do that. I could not like trust somebody enough to go to a different country with them and keep a marriage and whatever. And this was cute, like, outside of the unbelievable parts, it was cute. Their romance was cute. And again, a lot of the problems issue from lack of communication, which is to be expected if you only know somebody for 2 days. and it was fine. Like it was 3 stars for me. Like, I don't pick up romances in the first place. The steamy parts were good, but I just, like, it was just whatever, it's average. So, like I said, 3 stars. Next up, I listened to the audiobook of We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson, and this is about a boy who keeps being abducted by aliens, and he's given the opportunity to prevent the world from ending or to just let it end. And this guy, I can't even remember the main character's first name. I think it's Henry. Is that right? I don't know. The boy, the main character, he's been through a lot of traumatic stuff in the last year-ish, and a little bit before that as well. If you go into this book, please look up trigger warnings because there are so many. I wrote down that there are suicide, suicidal thoughts, attempted rape, self-harm, bullying, parental abandonment, just a bucket list, not a bucket list, but a long list of things that could be potentially triggering. So please look at reviews that have a full listing of potentially triggering things that happen in this book. And I liked the concept of this book, but I didn't like the way that it was fleshed out in the end. I gave this book 3 stars, and I think that the main goal of this book is to be hopeful by the end of it. And at the end, I just felt bummed out. Like, I felt anxious while I was reading it, and then, like, bummed about, like, the message is basically like, yeah, life sucks, but there are good things anyways. And though we were supposed to get that message, and I understand, like, it's there, I didn't feel it. And I didn't really like the ending of the book. And like the majority of the characters in the book are terrible, and I didn't really connect with the main character, and so it was just an average read for me as well, which really surprised me because there are so many people on BookTube who absolutely love this book, and so I was really surprised that I didn't love it, but it was fine. It was okay. So 3 stars to that one. And the last book that I read this month was Kings, Queens, and Inbetweens by Tanya Boteju. I think maybe that might be Boteju. We'll go with one of those options. This is about a girl named Nima who is in love with her best friend, but her best friend is like, sorry, I like guys, and I don't feel the same way. And so it kind of just like crushes Nima's heart. And so she goes to her town's like annual festival thing and ends up at a drag show where she just becomes completely enamored by drag culture, and in specific this one person who goes in between, like, they're not a drag queen because it's a girl, and she just like has this sultry performance identity, and then also she's a drag king, and Nima is just like bamboozled by her. And so we go through Nima struggling with like not getting the feelings that she has reciprocated, and just a lot of other struggles. And I expected to like this a lot because I love drag culture. I love drag shows. I used to watch RuPaul's Drag Race religiously, and then I got kind of annoyed by it, so I don't watch it very much anymore, but I love going to drag shows. And I did really love the drag aspects of this book. However, similar to We Are the Ants, this book made me very anxious because, like, everything that could possibly go wrong does. And there are some light moments in this one. And I meant to say with We Are the Ants, like, that book, everything that could possibly go wrong for the main character does. And it does not seem hopeful hardly ever. And that's one of the tropes, or like a device that authors use that I hate, is when the character can't catch a break and when everything is going wrong. That happens a lot in this book, and there are some hopeful moments, there are some light things, there's some happy times, And Nima uses the drag community and drag culture to find a way to escape sort of from traditional life and to just kind of discover herself and discover her confidence. And it was okay. I gave it 3 stars, and I'm really sad about that because I thought this would be a 5-star read for me, but I didn't like it as much as I thought it was going to. This also took me a super long time to read. Like, I started it before the reading rush, and I was not interested in it like at the beginning, and I got about 60 pages in and then I put it down, and the reading rush happened, so I was reading other things, and then I just finished it yesterday or the day before, and yeah, I'm kind of bummed I didn't like it. And there was also lack of communication in here, which is another thing I really hate. I think I already said that, but anywho, 3 stars. Hate to end this wrap up on a sour note, sort of, but it was just fine. Okay, so I think that's all 12 things I read this month. I expect that this will be my last month of the year where I get to read so much because I started grad school back at the beginning of this week, and I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be reading things for class, and I will still count that towards my reading goal and probably talk about it in my wrap-ups, but I know that I'm not going to have time to read like 12 things unless it's graphic novels and manga, and then like audiobooks will help as well. My reading plans for September, I'm going to be participating in the Raven Cycle read-along because I've never read those books before, and I got them when I went to visit my best friend in Washington, D.C. in July, and so now I have them, and I knew about the read-along then, and so I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait until September and read it with everybody else who decides to. I'm also going to be reading Layer of Dreams via audiobook, and I think the Diviners read-along is like continuing with that this month. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm going to be doing that. I have to read Educated by Tara Westover for my faculty and staff book club that we have at my work, and then I'm going to try to read several volumes of My Hero Academia, and then whatever I have to read for school. I think I'm gonna have to read like 4 to 8 books this month, so it's highly possible that I'll read 12 books again, but some of them will be for school, some of them will be children's books because of the courses I'm in. So anyway, that's my wrap up. That's the plans for September as well. Comment below if you guys have read any of these and what your thoughts are, if I have any like controversial opinions about any of these books, or if we share anything, like if you felt the same way about any of the books that I do, I would love to know. But until next month, because today's the last of the month, I'll see you guys later. Bye.